Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode of Into the Floo. In today's episode, we're going to do another deck tech. I'm really having fun doing these, and I hope that you're all enjoying them as well. If not for anything else, this is just going to give you some insight into how people build their decks. You can look and see some different card combinations. You can get some inspiration from this deck and then just build something else. So you don't have to obviously build it just the way that I have it here. You can have fun with it, tear it apart, do your own thing. So I've played a few times with this deck on some of the games that you'll see on my channel. I made a new playlist called Harry Potter TCG Gameplay, where the playlist is just all about gameplay, and then I've done the same thing for decks as well. So you'll kind of see me add to both of those. But here we are. We're gonna do a Professor Sprout deck, which is a Kara Magical Creature and Transfiguration. We've got about 20 or so Transfiguration lesson cards. We don't have any particular Kara Magical Creature lesson cards, but we do have the lesson power that Pomona Sprout provides us. And her cool special ability is each of your plants has 2 more health. So this is a thematic deck. So it's Sprout as a starting character, and there's a lot of plants that you're going to see here. So let's talk about the plants first. We've got Leaping Toadstools and Umbrella Flowers. So these are going to help with damage taking. So once per turn, you may let Leaping Toadstools take 1 damage that you were going to take. The same with Umbrella Flowers. You may let Umbrella Flowers take 1 damage you were going to take. So I've been able to stack these up in gameplay relatively quickly because this is only 1 power, and this is 3 power cost in order to play it. So you can play it right away if you get it in your hand because she provides that 1, at least for Leaping Toadstool. So what this means is if your opponent has a spell or a creature or something along those lines and they do 2 damage, for example, you can have Leaping Toadstool take 1 of those. So then you would only take 1 damage from your deck. If you have a Leaping Toadstool and an Umbrella Flowers, or 2 Leaping Toadstools or 2 Umbrella Flowers, or whatever the situation is, you'll be able to absorb both of those. So they can only take 1 damage per turn. So that's that's kind of the benefit of having that. And because we have Pomona Sprout as a starting character and she allows each plant to have 2 more health, that means that Leaping Toadstool has 6 health total, so they can take 6 damage that you were going to take from your deck. And that means that Umbrella Flowers has 8 health, which means that they can absorb 8 damage that you were going to take. So again, if you can stack these up, all the merrier, right? Now we've got the 2 creatures that are going to be plants, but also they're going to do the damage, and that's Cobra Lily and Mandrake. So Mandrake does 3 damage, Cobra Lily does 2, and Mandrake also allows you to use an action and discard Mandrake from play to put a non-healing character from your discard pile into your hand. So that's pretty cool if you structure your deck with maybe some characters and plants, if you wanted to. So in addition to the plants, we also have Swarm, which is a really good Kara Magical Creature card that's used once you're able to stack up some creatures. And let's say that you're playing against your opponent who also has a creature deck. Swarm says count the number of creatures in play, yours and your opponent's, and do that much damage to your opponent. So it kind of has, even though your opponent's creatures might be doing damage to you, you can also use them to do damage to your opponent. If they've got 3 creatures in play and you've got 3, that's a total of 6 extra damage that they're going to take on top of whatever it is that your creatures are doing and all of that. So I really dig it. I love having Swarm. Swarm and Steel Claw are kind of like the 2 main cards that you should always have in your deck if you're playing Transfiguration and creatures, or one of the other, as long as there's creatures involved. Obviously you don't have to, but it's just a suggestion, because I think it works to the benefit of any of those creature cards. Again, so Steel Claw, all of your creatures do damage to your opponent. So if you play a Steel Claw and a Swarm at the same time, we're talking, let's say that's 5 and then 6, 7 just from this alone. If you have one of those, 1 each in play. So just something to think about, just a suggestion if you do want to have something along these lines. What else do we have in here? We've got Lost Notes. So choose one of your opponent's items or lessons in play and discard it. So that always helps, especially, we're all trying to stack up our lessons, right? Even if you have a starting character that has one lesson power, that's just one. So you want to make sure that you're building those lessons. So taking that away from your opponent or having it taken away from you sucks. Of course, items as well, because some items provide multiple lesson power, 2 at a time, 3 at a time, all of this. And so getting rid of those items could definitely be a huge setback. Of course, we have Dobby's Disappearance. I think I have Dobby's Disappearance in almost any deck that I've got Transfiguration, Transfiguration lessons in. It just allows you to remove one of those cards from your opponent, and then you still get an extra action. So it's almost like you can remove that card from play for free. We've got Serpensortia. Search your deck. You may take up to 2 creature cards from your deck, show them to your opponent, put them in your hand, then shuffle your deck. This does cost 6. It's the most expensive card that I have, but it's still not that much, right? So, if I end up finding myself just pulling lessons and I'm not pulling, like the creatures that I need, whether it's to help me, like by way of plants, or to actually do damage, the plants that will do damage, this always comes into play, because sometimes I just get a really crappy hand, and, that's just kind of the reality of it. We've got Picking on Neville. Choose one of your opponent's cards in play and discard it. Your opponent may prevent this by choosing 2 of his or her cards in play and discarding those. So I like Picking on Neville. It's kind of, very similar to Dobby's Disappearance in that way. Even though it doesn't give you an extra action, it allows your opponent to choose, to take 2. And so sometimes they do, if you know that it's one of their best cards that they have in play, for example, a creature like a Welsh Green Dragon, where they had to get rid of 6 lessons just to play that card, and you choose that card for your Picking on Neville to have them get rid of, they might not get rid of it. They might get rid of a couple lessons instead, or something else they have in play, because they invested so much in that one card. So that's always good, because then if you do end up having an opportunity to come in behind them and work a Dobby's Disappearance or a Picking on Neville in, you can take it anyway, which obviously sucks, but that's Wizards duels. So let's talk about some of the less adventures that we have. So we've got Midnight Duel, which is one of my favorite artworks of the game. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Beautiful. So you have to have at least 5 lessons in play in order to play this. The effect is to use an action to play a creature or spell card from his or her hand. Your opponent must discard another card from their hand first. That does suck. I mean, if you're not playing creatures or spells, what are you playing, right? So that's definitely going to be impactful. So to solve it, your opponent chooses 4 of his or her cards in play and discards them. So you could make sure that you kind of, you use your Picking on Neville, you use your Dobby's Disappearance, and then you can play this card on the next one, because your opponent might not have that many cards in play, and then they can't solve this. So it ends up kind of being, just depending on when you play it, it ends up being more devastating than you might have thought. So we've talked about Riding the Centaur a couple of times. This is a really nice card that I like having in most of my decks anyway, whether it's creature or not, because it prevents all damage done by your opponent's creatures. To solve it, your opponent chooses 4 of his or her cards in play and returns them to their hand. So it's not discarding them, but it's definitely still impacting them, because sometimes those cards require for them to have whatever specific lessons, or whatever the case might have been, and maybe they don't have that out yet, like that Welsh Green Dragon we just talked about. If they discarded some lessons, they can't just play that Welsh Green Dragon again as easily, so it might not be as impactful for them, or I should say for you, if you end up playing this and they have to get rid of something. And then we've got 2, Escaping the Dursleys, very similar to Caught by Snape, of course. Your opponent can't use actions to play any cards except lesson cards. To solve it, your opponent discards his or her hand, and your opponent's reward is they may search their deck and take a card, put it into their deck, and then put it into their hand and then shuffle. So that's that. We've got, again, some really cool plant play over here, which I really enjoy. This is a thematic deck, so you definitely have to have the plants. Themed decks are always fun to build. You've got Quidditch that you can build. You've got plants like in Sprout you can build. You got Transfiguration with McGonagall, potions and Snape. You have all kinds of stuff. And so being able to have fun with it is definitely a plus. If you want to build this deck and you want to adjust it, please go ahead and do so. If you need any help with cards, please let me know. If you want to join the Discord League, please do that. We use webcams when we play, and you're kind of able to have a conversation with your opponent, maybe get to know them a little bit more, say hi to people from around the world, and make gameplay kind of like what it was when we were young. You'd go to game shops, card shops, you'd play a game face to face with somebody, you maybe make some friends along the way. There's nothing better than that, right? We all love the game, and there's no reason why we can't just enjoy it together. Of course, using some of the computerized, like Untap, like some of those websites, there's nothing wrong with that either. Of course, this just gives us an opportunity for those of us who do have the cards, right? Feel free to use proxies as well. I know this game can get a little bit expensive, a lot of bit expensive. So feel free to do that. If there's anything that I can ever do to help anyone in their journey for the Harry Potter TCG, please let me know. I also have a magazine now, the Harry Potter, the Into The Floo, a Harry Potter TCG magazine. If you're interested in that, there's articles on gameplay, there's articles on collector items, ultra rare items, interviews, etc. If that's something that you want, again, please let me know. So without any further ado, this is the beautiful deck. And if you have any questions, as always, hit me up. Have fun, be safe, and we'll see you next time.